Well, let's take it now to a developing story. Within the next few minutes, America's latest economic data is to be released. It'll be a fresh test of Donald Trump's leadership. It's GDP figures we're talking about. Let's bring in our business presenter, Darren McCaffrey. And Darren, they're expecting to fall, and they're expected to fall by quite a lot, aren't they?
They are expected to fall, and that is not least of all because, of course, we've seen a lot of turmoil in the US economy over the last couple of months, particularly when it comes to the stockpiling of goods, if you like. That trade deficit that Donald Trump talks about has actually got worse in the United States over the last couple of months as companies have been importing lots of goods in expectations of these tariff implementations. And the reason I say in expectation, because we're talking about the first quarter effectively of this year, which takes us up to just before them coming into place. And we're looking, I think, Jane, in the last couple of minutes, at GDP being down at 0.3% in the first quarter. It had been, of course, in the previous quarter, that is the last couple of months, last 3 months of 2024, at an annualized rate of 2.4%. It was expected, if you like, that the GDP figure would be down, and it does seem like it is down. And this is compounding economic news from the United States. We've also had information in the last couple of minutes about the number of payrolls, people essentially being employed, and that figure is below expectations.
So Darren, let's just put it, just remind our viewers who are just tuning in, that is a cracking drop, isn't it? From 2.4% GDP down to 0.3% GDP in the first quarter of this year. Yeah,
we should say that 2.4% is on an annualised basis. So that's how the US economy was doing across the entire year. And we will get an extrapolation of what we now expect, effectively the annualised version of GDP to be across the year. But it has fallen by 0.3% in the first quarter. And we are hearing from lots of different essentially economists suggesting what they are now expecting, frankly, is a recession this year in the United States. Just before we had those GDP figures, we were looking at effectively Morgan Stanley saying the annualized rate would be down 1.4%, Goldman Sachs saying it's somewhere between 0.2 and 0.8%, JP Morgan saying it is likely to be down 1.75%, i.e., all in all, most economists are now predicting that the US will go into recession this year. And these figures are a reflection of that, because 2 points, first of all, is that it has fallen in the first quarter. This is before the actual implementation of those tariffs that are expected to prove a further drag. Now, in many ways, this is a really complicated picture because trade deficits do feed into the understanding of GDP figures, and they have been at a record high because of that stockpiling I was talking about. But it is a reminder that the US economy, Jane, that has been incredibly robust, effectively, over the last decade or so, in contrast to ours here at home in the UK and to Europe, now looks like it is slipping. And as I say, the expectation from these figures and going forward is that we are likely to see the US now slip into a recession. And that is not good news for Donald Trump, who's talked about, yes, some short-term economic pain, some disturbance, as he called it, that will lead to greater growth in the years to come and also to increase tax revenues for the US government. Well, many do not agree with that assessment, and the figures and the expectation going forward is that simply may not be the case.
OK, Darren, thanks very much for bringing us that important economic news. Let's bring in Dr. James Boys, who's a US political historian, an honorary research fellow at University College London. We thought they were going to fall. Dr. Boys, what's your assessment of how far they have fallen?
Well, good afternoon, Jane. You're absolutely right. As Darren rightly pointed out, the expectation was that this was going to happen. The figures have fallen. Frankly, whoever won the presidency in November last year, there was an expectation that the economy would slow down. There was a suggestion that there was overheating in the economy. And frankly, for much of Joe Biden's term in office, there was an expectation of an imminent recession. He was quite fortunate that didn't happen. It should be pointed out that the Biden administration did actually try to change what the definition of a recession was. So moving into this quarter, it's very clear, I think, that you have seen a drop of 0.3%. That will not be seen as good news at the White House. And I think it will also be used by the White House to put increased pressure upon the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, to reduce interest rates, which, of course, this White House has been pushing for very vocally.
Well, yes, you say that they've been pushing to try to reduce interest rates. They think that will play very well with many people in the US. So is this, therefore, not part of Donald Trump's plan?
Well, I don't think his plan was to see a reduction in GDP. I think the rationale for pushing a reduction in interest rates is because I think you're going to see a massive hit upon consumer confidence. And the American economy, much like the British economy, is driven by consumer spending in many ways. And bizarrely enough, a lot of the other financial figures at this point are actually trending in the right direction. Unemployment, as I think Darren mentioned in his report, is at a pretty good point, 4.2%. Inflation's at 2.4%. Gasoline prices are now under 2% in many states. So you are seeing, I think, a split in the economy between, the high levels we're talking about today and the day-to-day cost of living here, which has certainly decreased since Donald Trump came to office. But certainly these figures in terms of addressing consumer confidence and the ongoing effect that will have upon mortgages and people's ability to spend in the high street will, I think, have a detrimental impact that the Trump administration will hope will rebound in Q2 and Q3. Although, of course, the impact of tariffs will be no doubt severely felt when these figures are again released at the end of this quarter.
And as you say, President Trump has said that there will be short-term pain. Do you think that this will just be short-term, that we will see a bounce back in the later quarters in the year?
Well, of course, it's that great line that economists were put on this earth to make astrologers look accurate. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. But certainly the White House predictions and aspiration is that by announcing these tariffs very, very early at the end of Q1, is that into Q2 and 3, we'll see a steady stream of nations lining up to sign bilaterals so that by the end of Q3 into Q4, the expectation at the White House is that the stock market will have bounced back to pre-tariff announcement levels, so that going into the new calendar year, which of course is a midterm election in the United States, whatever short-term pain has been inflicted upon the American people will have basically rebounded, and the stock market will be back to pre-Liberation Day levels. That's the hope, and the White House is betting the midterm elections on that, I think.
Yeah, we shall have to wait and see how that turns out. Dr. James Boys, very good to talk to you today. Thank you very much for joining us.